Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scott Groves here with my new friend up in Vegas, Dom the Hypnotist. And funny story, so Dom and I go to the same Jiu-Jitsu gym, 10th Planet, up here in Vegas when I'm in town. Many of you know I live part of the year in LA, part of the year at Henderson. And he's a pretty big dude, pretty strong guy, purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu, and just whoops my ass every time we go in there. And so we were in between rounds, and I was like, hey, man, what do you do? Because, you know, you're big and strong. You got a bunch of tattoos and shit. I was expecting him to say, oh, I'm a prison guard, or I'm
a lumberjack,
I'm an ex-Marine, current lumberjack. And he's like, yeah, dude, I'm a hypnotist. I'm like, shut the fuck up. That's just something that you say to, like, women to get laid. He's like, no, actually, happily married, and I'm a hypnotist. I'm like, no, that's not a real thing. So, like, 3 weeks go by, we're working out again. I'm like, hey, man, what do you do for a living again? And expecting him to come up with some other BS answer. And he's like, yeah, I'm a hypnotist. And I'm like, no, that's not really a real thing. And it wasn't until I saw his Instagram and I saw him giving, like, life advice and kind of personal development stuff in the hypnosis realm on Instagram, and he's got 30, 40,000 followers. Then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess this guy is really a hypnotist. So First of all, weirdest profession for a dude, like judging a book by its cover. I just don't expect you to be that guy.
Totally.
And I don't even know what a hypnotist does. So let's dig in there. Like, what is a hypnotist? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I used to think when you think of a hypnotist, like it's an old white guy with gray hair and probably a goatee or a mustache, and he just like waves a watch in front of you and says, oh, you're getting very sleepy.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly what's in my mind.
That's what I thought. And then basically I got into it. I don't know if you asked it, but I'll just tell it anyways. I got into it completely randomly. And so, you know, growing up, you see videos on YouTube of people doing like rapid inductions, which is where you grab somebody's hand, you say sleep, right? And they go into like a trance or whatever. Or you see stage hypnosis shows. I don't know if you've been to one. They have some here in Vegas. But I used to think all of it was like, it's probably paid actors or it's fake. You know,
it's all bullshit, right?
It's all bullshit, yeah. So before I got into it, me and my girl, we went to a show here at Planet Hollywood. It was a hypnosis show, right? So you're sitting there in the crowd, and the guy goes through his whole, spiel or whatever. And, a certain amount of people go up on stage, and then they start taking people off. And then you're left with, 10 people or whatever. And so the guy is going through the whole show, and he's making people do just the most ridiculous, embarrassing things, like, having sex with a blow-up doll or dancing on stage. And you're sitting there, and you're 20, 30 feet away, and you can see these people are not acting. They're not being paid. Like they seem to be under some type of spell or something.
They're
right?
not plants in the audience. They're not.
No, not at all. Not at all. So after seeing it with my own eyes, it's not plants. No. After seeing it with my own eyes, I was like, wow, this is real. These people are really doing this. You could just tell, when you could tell if somebody's acting, you could tell if somebody's just doing it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I guess it is real. So fast forward, my mom actually went to this personal development course where they teach like NLP and hypnosis and stuff like that. NLP is like what Tony Robbins is really famous for and stuff. So she's telling me about it or whatever. And I'm like, I've always been interested in that stuff, but I always thought it would take, months and months and months of training and schooling before you could be able to do it. And she goes, no, you can learn in a couple of days. So anyways, she ended up surprising me with an introductory course as a Christmas gift back in 2018. So, I go to the course, the course is a couple months later, and I'm just thinking like, all right, I'm going to go to this course and see what happens. I have no plan on doing this for a living, like literally zero expectation I was going to end up doing this.
At that time you were working in insurance.
Yeah, I was doing insurance. And so I was like, I'll just go and see what it's like and maybe clear up some of my own subconscious blocks or whatever. And then I went to it and I just fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is really powerful stuff. And I went, it was like a 2.5 day weekend type of course. And man, when I got out of that course, I felt change. Like there was just something was different inside me. And so I was like, wow, if I can help people feel the way I feel right now, and I could do this for a living, I would way rather do this than sell insurance. So I set a goal for 6 months. I wanted to quit doing insurance and transition into doing hypnotherapy full time. And I just went out and just started working like crazy. I started doing a bunch of free sessions for people. And then within 2 weeks, I had a full day of insurance appointments. I texted my assistant at the time. I said, hey, call these people. This is it. I'm never selling another insurance policy ever again in my life. And I just quit. And then ever since that day, that was literally in a week or so, that'll be 3 years exactly from when I made that decision. And I've never went back and sold insurance ever again. So it's been good.
We got to dig in a little bit here. So what is it about you? Because I've been to Tony Robbins, and I know the neuro-linguistic programming is a real thing and can actually, really help people with the self-talk and how they talk, and it can help you in sales and how you talk to other people. I also know people that have been to 2.5 day, shooting seminars where they're playing with Navy SEALs and learning how, people go to these kind of seminars all the time. And it definitely helps them, or it changes them a little bit, but it rarely completely changes the course of their life.
Right.
So what was it either about you or that seminar, or where you're like, because I know a lot of people that make a lot of money in insurance or mortgage or real estate that maybe they say they want to do this other thing, but nobody actually does it and says,
I guess that's
6 months from now, I'm going to be a Tony Robbins coach. They're just like, oh, that was a cool experience. I walked on fire. It made my life a little bit better. I stopped drinking Diet Pepsi because I had the little struggle session with myself. But they don't all of a sudden decide no, I'm going to totally change the course of my life. This is just the way it is. How does that materialize in your brain as even an option?
What it was is I'd been selling insurance since I was 18 years old. And I had a couple odd jobs here and there in between. I worked for this one company for about 5 years, and then I stopped. I took some time off, and then I tried some other stuff, didn't work out. And then I got back into insurance, and man, by the end of it, in the beginning, I was all gung ho. I was super excited about it. I was passionate about it. And towards the end, I was just like, man, I hate this. I don't want to sell insurance anymore. But, I was making good money at the time. So it's kind of like you get trapped in that sort of I got to keep doing it to put food on the table. And, I had a baby on the way and all. Yeah. So I just got stuck. But when I would drive around to different appointments and stuff like that, I would always think man, there's got to be something else out there, something that I would enjoy doing, and something I would be proud of being able to be oh, this is who I am. This is what I do. Not just oh, I fucking sell life insurance, So when I went to that and I had that experience of just feeling, so changed, I was like, man, this is it. This sounds might sound corny, but I was like, this is what I was put on this earth to do, is help people have these transformational experiences. And so, I just said, fuck it. What do I got to lose? I can continue to sell insurance and make money. Cool. Or I can do this other thing. And I took a pay cut, obviously in the beginning for 6-7 months, I was just kind of doing enough, but I thought to myself, I would way rather be happy doing something I enjoy than just to, slave away selling insurance for another 10, 20 years. So that was it for me. I was just like, fuck it. Got nothing to lose. Just do it, And I just had the mindset hey, if I do this, if I put my mind to it, I can make it happen. So just, you just do it. And it's like the old saying, you got to burn the boats, right? So just cut off, I didn't do that right away because I still had to get, comfortable with it. But within those 2 weeks, I had worked with so many people. It just really gave me the confidence, oh, I can actually do this, not just with people in the course, but people outside. So then, so I just made the decision and just stuck with it,
So I'm really interested in this. You're in the course, you're in this 2.5 day training. Obviously there's some speaker training stuff going on. And then there's kind of some exploration where they're doing hypnosis on you, or you guys are doing it on each other, and you guys are working through whatever the practice is, which we'll definitely get to. I'm going to make a note here to get to what's the actual practice. So you're going through this 2.5 day seminar. I'm interested to hear what was your baggage, or what was the thing that you cleared up in your head, or what was the thing that got so significantly better for you over the course of a 2.5 day course, where you're oh, this is the thing that can change lives. Because I've heard, the only other corollary I've heard from this, we interviewed a friend of mine, Ariel, great podcast where we talked about her eating disorders and things of that nature. Yeah. And that once she found out that there was a proper way to do nutrition, it changed her life. And she's like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life, is help other women with the challenges I had, first as being bulimic, and then going into bodybuilding and having a whole other body dysmorphia issue. Right. So it's the first training program she went to, she was like, this is my life's work. But I'm wondering, what was it that cleared up in your head, or what got so much better in that couple days that you're like, oh yeah, this is how I can really change people's lives?
Yeah. So it was some things that cleared up in my head, but more so it was a feeling. So, are you familiar with Reiki and chakras and stuff like that?
Only as a punchline to a joke.
Just basic shit, right? So
explain those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your chakras are basically these energy centers that are in your body, right? So you have like your crown, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root chakra. So maybe
root like my junk? Like,
yeah,
okay,
basically,
cool.
yeah.
Perfect.
It's your where
testes?
your anus meets your testicles. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
So my mom, like, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, she took me to this lady who did like a test on me. So I laid down on this bed, and she had this like crystal thing that was hanging from a rope or whatever. And so she goes over the different energy centers in your body. And by the way, I'm thinking, this is all fucking bullshit. What the fuck am I doing here? I just did it because my mom wanted me to do it. So
is your mom like an old school hippie from Sedona?
No, my mom actually owns a State Farm, and she actually owns now 2 State Farm insurance agencies. So she's like totally normal, but she's just
pragmatic.
Yeah, successful. She does really well for herself, but she's also into spirituality and stuff. So she took me to this lady, and she was going over the different chakra points or whatever. And I guess when you put it over certain areas, like it'll spin in a certain direction, right? So when she put it over my heart chakra, which is here, it wasn't moving, right? So essentially what that means is that this area is blocked up and there's no like energy flowing through. So you have a blockage in your body. Now, by the way, if you think that chakras are all bullshit, here's proof that they're not, okay? When you get a headache, where do you feel it?
Temple, yeah, right there.
Feel right here or here. Right, yeah. There's also smaller chakras here. When you go and to speak in front of a crowd or meet a new person, what happens to your throat?
Yeah, it gets
closes up, right?
Dry, yeah.
When you're feeling anxious or stressed out or a lot of pressure from the world, what happens to your chest?
Tighten.
You get tight, right? That's the heart chakra. When you do something that you maybe regret or you feel guilty about, I don't know if have you ever ran over like a cat on the road? I've done it one time, and you know what happened? I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach, like, oh, that was so shitty. Damn, I didn't do it on purpose, but I felt that like gut guilt in my stomach. So that's your sacral or your solar plexus. And then men, when we're about to get in a fight, speaking of testicles, what happens to our balls?
Yeah.
They shrink up, right?
Yeah, and your anus tightens up.
And your anus,
everything.
That's where your root is. So in these areas in our body, we actually store trauma. So if we have, let's say, when you're younger, something happened to you, you have a memory of it, but you also have the physical trauma. So that's why when you think about memories from your past, you will feel the feelings of what you felt in that moment, right? You'll get the tight chest, throat, or whatever. So long story short, oh, and here's another way. So it's kind of cold in here, so this may not work, but take your hands, okay? Here's another proof that chakras are real and energy is real and all that. It's a little cold, so I don't know how this will do, but just kind of warm up your hands just a little bit just to get the blood flowing, okay? And then what I want you to do is you're going to make sure your hands are nice and loose, make sure your arms are extended. Take your index finger and just put it really close to your palm like this, okay? And you'll feel a little sensation in your palm. Just breathe normally, okay? Don't like hold your breath. And then start to pull your finger away. And just pull it away. Make sure your arms aren't bent. Make sure you got to let it flow through. And just pull it away. And just go as far as you can until like you can't do it anymore. You feel that?
Yeah, that's really
You feel that, right? And just keep going. And you can go fully stretched out.
That's really creepy, man.
Isn't that creepy? But here's all that is. And if I did 5 minutes of deep breathing and we were, if I had you walk 50 feet away, I could go like this with my hand and I could, target it. And I could literally, I know it sounds stupid, but I could send energy through my finger all the way to your hand and you would feel it 50, 60 feet away. Now, I know it sounds stupid.
It's like if I didn't know you in real life, I would be just telling you that this is total bullshit.
I know.
You're selling me some snake oil salesman. Like, it's weird. It's weird that this is
But you just felt
real.
it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not making that up,
but
right?
maybe my mind told me I was feeling
I know.
it.
I thought that same thing when I first did that exercise too. I'm like, well, maybe it's my mind or whatever. But you want to do a little thing let's do it. So close your eyes.
All right.
Okay. And I'm going to make you feel really shitty right now just for a moment, okay?
Pretty easy to do.
So, yeah. So I want you to think about something you're stressed out about, okay? Think about something you're worried about, maybe you've been putting something off for a really long time, or just something is going on in your life. Maybe it's work, relationships, health, whatever. And I want you to really feel the stress and the anxiety and the fear that this thing is causing you, okay? And I want you to really turn up those feelings. Like, that's right. See how your breathing's speeding up? Good. So really imagine like that event, what you're anxious about, is happening right here in this moment. Feel the stress, feel the frustration, feel those emotions, and amplify those feelings. Really imagine that you're going through whatever it is you're anxious about right here, right now. That's right. Okay. Now open your eyes, think about what you had for breakfast. So now go back and do your little thing. Make sure your hands are extended and notice what happens to that feeling. Where is it?
It's not there.
It's not there, right? So here's what happened. So we have energy. I know I didn't tell you it wasn't going to be there. Did I? No, I didn't tell you what was going to happen. I didn't give you any suggestions. It's just not there.
But I could feel in that moment that like when you were going through that exercise, my breath was pacing. It was definitely getting more rapid. I was clenching my jaw.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with a mindfulness expert one time, meditation and stuff.
Yeah.
And she asked me, she's like, hey, what is the feeling you get right before you're like going to get in a bar fight or you're about to, I used to do boxing at the time before you're about to get a punch. And I'm like, oh, I get this tightness in my chest, you know? And she's like, yeah, when you feel that in an argument or a moment of frustration with your team, shut the fuck up and go for a walk for an iced tea. Cause nothing that's going to come out of your mouth next is going to feel better. So as you're going through that exercise, all that stuff was tightening up. And I'm guessing you're going to tell me that's what stopped this shit.
Yeah. So what happens is, everything is,
and by the way, for people that are listening to this instead of watching it, all it is drawing a little circle on your palm and you can feel like you're touching
electricity.
Your palm.
It feels like a little sensation.
That didn't happen after the negative thought process.
Right. So remember, and this is just basic science, right? Everything is made up of atoms, and atoms vibrate to make this table, to make this microphone, to make our body. So everything is made up of energy. So we're just big, huge energy meat suits walking around. So we have these energy meridians that run through our body, right? So we have the chakras that I mentioned, but we also have energy meridians that run down our arms, out of our fingertips, down our legs, out of our toes. So what was happening is before we did the exercise, those energy meridians were very open, right? So you could feel the electricity running through your body. But as soon as we put you in that negative state, your chest and the energy centers start to tighten up. Well, what happens if you take a garden hose and you pinch it or you tighten it up? The water's not going to flow through. So that's what happens when you're in a negative state. The energy doesn't actually flow through your body. So to kind of circle to what I was telling you about, when this lady did this thing over my chest, and by the way, at the time I didn't think any of this was real. So she's like, "Oh yeah, your heart chakra is blocked. Are you going through like a breakup? Are you dealing with any type of relationship stuff?" And at the time I was, but I was like, no, because my mom was there. I didn't want to like open up or whatever. And I was like, no, whatever. But then after I was like, oh, that's interesting. So fast forward to the course, I went through the course and you clear out just a lot of relationship stuff and childhood stuff from your parents and this, that, and the other, and, whatever. And so when I got out of that course, just like you could feel that energy in your finger, I felt that energy, but out of my chest. Like I could literally, with my hands, physically touch it like this far away from my body, 1.5 feet away. I could feel that energy. So in other words, that my heart chakra, as silly as it sounds, opened up, right? And the energy started to flow. So I just felt this surge of like love and excitement and joy. And so that is what I remember. I was driving. I remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a blue, jacket, like a pea coat type of jacket and a purple shirt. And I was driving in my car. I was like, I think I was on Valley Verde. And I was just like, I was at a stoplight and I was like, holy shit, man. I was just feeling the energy from my body. I was like, this is amazing. I've never felt this way in my life. So it was like in that moment where I really realized how much of a shift, because I could feel it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how that's what got me to decide, this is what I want to do. So
it's wicked.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
So
right?
wicked. And I'm interested when you said, going through the course, you deal with like some relationship issues and some childhood issues and whatnot. I kind of feel like there's two two schools of thought, and I'm probably going to get the people wrong, so forgive me for people that are watching or listening to this that are way smarter than me. It's like kind of the Tony Robbins approach versus maybe the Freudian approach, where it's like, well, you know, there's some sexual trauma, or mom didn't hug you enough or whatever, so you need to be in therapy for, you know, every 2 weeks or every week for 20 years. You know, that's kind of one approach. And then more of the Tony Robbins approach is like, well, you can't change the past, so get the fuck over it and move on, and what's something good that we can look forward to.
Right.
So when we're talking about maybe either the training or the practice of hypnotism, is it more like, hey, just release it and move on and get on with your life? Or is it like, hey, we really got to explore that deep trauma. We got to talk about this a lot. We got to relive your childhood and talk about why mom didn't hug you enough and make excuses. And we'll get over this in like 4 or 5 years. Or is it more like the Tony Robbins approach of like, let it go, let's get over it?
Dude. It's literally within a matter of minutes, you can get over, you know, I've worked with war veterans, people that have been sexually molested, raped, people that have killed people in war, have seen people die. And they come in, you know, they come to me with so much guilt and anger and fear and hurt and sadness and all this stuff. And one moment they're feeling it. They're feeling like how you were feeling in your body when you were thinking about whatever you're thinking about. And the next moment it's gone. And it's not a magic trick to where like, oh, in a day from now, is it going to come back? Like, no, once it's resolved, it's resolved. Now, here's the reason why it resolves. So our subconscious mind, one of its prime directives is to learn. So we're always wanting to learn. We're always wanting to learn. Okay. And so in life, all events that happen are neutral. So in other words, there's no such thing as a good event. There's no such thing as a bad event. Everything is neutral. The only thing that makes it good or bad is the person that's looking at it, or the perception of the person, right? So you could take politics, war, whatever. You could take any example. If a guy takes a fighter jet and he flies over a village in the Middle East and drops a bomb, is that a good event or is that a bad event? Well, it's neither. It's a neutral event that happened. Now, the guy flying the jet, he thinks he's doing a good thing, right? Obviously, the people that are getting bombed on probably don't think it's such a great thing. So it comes down to your perspective. So the way that trauma stores in our body is because an event happened and we perceived it in a negative way. We didn't learn from it. So in other words, we go, woe is me, this happened, why this, why that, blah, 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 right? So what our subconscious mind will do is it'll hold on to the trauma, again, store it in our body in the chakra systems, as a signal that, hey, there's something wrong here, Scott. You haven't let go when your girlfriend broke up with you in 5th grade or whatever, right? So whenever you feel those emotions, it's your subconscious mind, kind of like your check engine light in your car, is trying to say, hey man, there's something wrong here. We got to address this. So the way that you address it is by taking a step back and saying, okay, what did I learn from this? What are the positive learnings that I could take from this? As silly as it sounds, but this is the legitimate science behind why it works. What are the positive learnings I could take from this so I can move on? And then once you take the positive learnings, you go through the whole little deal, then you do a couple little things extra, then the feelings go away and then you don't have to deal with the trauma. So, on the therapy side, I've talked to, I don't know, like if you're talking just conversations, I don't know, 150, 200, maybe more people that have been in therapy for years and years and years. And it's for the same problem, right? And I've clients of mine who they'll go through one session. They go, dude, I have been talking with my therapist about this for the last 6 months or a year. And I'm completely done with this now. And it was within the matter of, like I said, 5-10 minutes, they're done. So the reason why that is because we're working with their subconscious mind. So when you're doing therapy, it's a lot of talking about like, why did it happen? That kind of stuff. But one thing is they're not going to the root of it. So a lot of the root of what we go through can also be genetic trauma. So things that our parents go through, our grandparents, great-grandparents, those memories get encoded in the DNA and then it's passed down to us. And those can actually affect us subconsciously as well. And there's a way you can actually tap into those genetic memories as if they were your memories and you can see exactly what that person went through, what they saw. Yeah, I'll tell you a story here in a moment. But also one of the other things is, when you're working with the subconscious mind, you always have to get permission before you let go of a negative emotion or limiting belief. So like I'm assuming the reason why you went to that coach is because you had an anger thing, right? You get frustrated, you get angry. Yeah. A lot of salespeople, a lot of people in sports, a lot of us have that like anger. Anger drives me, anger gets me power, it helps me get what I want. I can be the iron fist. So if I were to ask you, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but my initial instinct is if we were to talk to your subconscious mind and say, hey, is it okay to let go of my anger? Your subconscious mind would be like, I don't know if I want to do that, right? See,
probably not.
It's like, nah. So now if I go and I'm trying to give you therapy, but I haven't convinced your subconscious mind that, hey, it's not a good idea to hold on to your anger, then I could do all the therapy in the world. Nothing's going to work. So you always have to get the subconscious mind to agree 100%. Yes, I'm on board. Let's go ahead and let it go. And then it'll go away. So that's one of the reasons why the therapy doesn't work. And then what was I going to circle back to? There was something that I said I was going to, oh yeah. So the genetic memories, right? So a lot of people are skeptical on that. So I had a guy the other day.
Wait, I got to ask a follow-up question before we go into the genetic memory. I'm going to make a note here on the genetic memories.
Okay.
How do you get the subconscious to buy in 100% to the permission? Because the subconscious is the subconscious. Like my understanding is like your conscious is the thing, on the computer screen. The subconscious is kind of, Windows 98 running in the background. I'm probably still on like Windows 97 or Windows 93 or whenever Windows first came out. So how do you get the operating system to buy in?
Yeah. So you talk to it. So what you have to do is you have to figure out what's called secondary gain. So secondary gain is, what is the benefit if I hold on to this emotion or belief, right? So again, anger, one of the benefits a lot of people say is, well, it protects me, right? It helps me get what I want. But then once you kind of reframe and you get to realize, well, wait a minute, like or that lady told you, well, if you're feeling all these feelings, you're about to say something, chances are what you're about to say is not going to be very good. So is that anger actually protecting you or is it actually causing you more problems? Probably causing more problems, right? 2/3 of people that are in prison are there for violent crimes. Right. So why did they commit a violent crime? Most likely because they're angry. So in that moment, they thought, hey, this guy stepped on my shoe. This guy looked at me wrong. This guy said something wrong. I'm going to use my anger to commit violence on this person. It's protecting me. But then the guy ends up in jail for 10, 15, 20 years or life. And now he's in a worse off situation. So once people realize, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, my anger actually isn't really helping me. So if I let go of my anger, so if you let go of your anger in those, when you're talking to your team, what would that do for you? How would you be able to communicate?
Yeah, I'd probably be a better leader.
Yeah. And if you're a better leader, you have more success financially, relationships, everything would get better, right? And if all those areas get better, you can actually create more protection for yourself, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
So now you're
security for sure.
Yeah. So now you're realizing, oh, wait a minute, my anger isn't serving me. And now if that's the only thing that it's holding on to, there could be other things, but then it'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to let it go. So you see how now you're like, oh, that makes sense. That little pop that went off in your head. So now your subconscious mind will most likely be okay to like, let it go. And then that's how easy it is. But we do it, I have my clients, you have them close their eyes, go through the whole thing and you talk and then they say, oh, well, I want to hold on to it because of this. And, anger motivates me. And, the funny thing is,
that's one of the things I would say. Cause I think about there's some people that do better when they're pissed off. It's like Kobe Bryant was always a world-class basketball player, but you could see it when he got pissed. Like that's when he drops 81. Like, maybe he was in the flow. Maybe there's some better description, but it's like, you could just see in that game where he dropped 81 points, where like in the first quarter, he was looking around and he's like, my team sucks. Like I got nobody to pass the fucking ball to. Right. And he was so angry in that moment. He just went off for 81 points. So like in my mind, anger is somewhat correlated with like being a top producer, or maybe there's some weird alpha male residual stuff in there where it's like, in my mind still, even talking to you right now, I'm like, yeah, but like anger can kind of serve you, like when you're mad and you want to get shit done, right?
Yeah.
So that's still in my subconscious.
So we do Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Right.
Have you ever done it yourself or gone with somebody, you're getting over on them, they get pissed off, what happens? They get a huge burst of strength, right? They're really fast and really powerful for about 5 seconds. And then what happens?
Then they're out of gas.
Then they're gassed.
And then you just lay
and
on
then
me
you
and
just
fucking destroy
exactly.
me. It's really annoying.
So did anger serve them in that moment, or would it have been better to kind of remain calm, stay focused, and not let your emotions get the best of you and use your mind to get out of that situation?
I got to tell you, since I started doing jiu-jitsu, there has been no flipped over desks during the workday. There has been no holes in walls. There has been no like angry outbursts.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice at my kids. But I mean, as far as like a business front, there's all kinds of physical stuff for jiu-jitsu and people practice it for self-defense or whatever. But for me, like taking that moment to pause and breathe when you think somebody's about to kill you or you're trying to choke me, it's like just learning that little pause of like, all right, fucking, I got to think. Because as you just described in jiu-jitsu, the more crazy you go, like probably the worst position you're going to put yourself in.
Right.
I have noticed in the last couple of years of just starting the journey on jiu-jitsu, it has calmed me down a lot.
Oh,
like
yeah,
things,
100%.
Things don't get to me anymore. I can play a couple hands of blackjack without getting angry and have to bet every last dollar under the sun on one hand of blackjack. Like it is really
there's another
calming.
thing. How much did your anger lose you in blackjack over your life?
Oh, we don't want to say that publicly because my wife might divorce me.
Or the IRS is listening. No.
Yeah.
But the Kobe thing, yeah, he might have been angry, and that's what allowed him to tap into that higher level of focus. But had he stayed angry the whole entire thing, there's no way he would have been able to do that. He would have been way too gassed. He would have lost all his strength. He wouldn't have been able to have that focus. Yeah, the anger might have been like, all right, fuck it. I'm gonna take this game over. But holding on to it and staying there, there's no way he could do that. You can't be pissed off for a whole basketball game and be successful. What was that one fight with the Ron Art when he was Ron Artest and the whole thing?
Yeah, with the Rumble.
Yeah, think about the anger then. Like people getting frustrated. People just don't perform well when they're angry. Now, what anger can do is it can give you confidence to do certain things in a moment. Could like make you, obviously, like if somebody ran in here and tried to attack us, like it would we'd get pissed and then we'd fight them back, right? But again, for long term, what we're talking about, it's just not it's not a very it's just not something that you want to hold on to or use as that motivation. So what's the word I'm trying to say? It's not sustainable is what I'm trying to say.
Got it.
So yeah, it can give you that little burst, but if you take a step back and you look at it from a third person perspective and go, yeah, wait a minute, that actually didn't help me. That fucked me over. So
yeah.
But
I imagine all that anger and all that stuff that you're trying to get people to let go, like there's got to be real negative side effects, right? Like if you're running at a level 10 all the time, you're angry, you're stressed, that release cortisone, that makes you more fat. There's so many negative effects,
right?
Ages you. I think I remember reading a study where men who are married, even though it's a fun joke to talk about, wives complaining or whatever, or nagging, men that are married tend to be less stressed out because other things are taken care of or there's a partner in life. And so I think you have to look this up, Chris. You'll have to be our fact checker on this. I think married men on average live like 2 years longer than unmarried men because something about like
the
stress is lower, cortisone levels are lower. So all the stuff, the heart disease, the stomach cancer, all of that goes down dramatically if you're married. Right. So it's like, women keep us around longer.
So that's another thing. Anger, you're putting, most disease, I actually heard it today, only about 10% of cancer is actually hereditary. The other 90% is the negative emotions, right? If you're angry all the time, your body is pumping out all these chemicals in your body, the cortisone, adrenaline, and everything. Well, if you were ingesting chemicals all day, like through your mouth, drinking it, what would eventually happen to your body? Your body's going to develop some type of illness. Right. Well, if we're constantly angry or we're in fear, we're stressed out all the time, we're also producing those chemicals, but it's internally. So what's going to eventually happen if you're in that state all the time? Your body's going to start to break down. You're going to get cancer. You're going to get heart attack. You're going to get all this shit. So, so definitely holding on to that stuff is not good. Now, does that mean that you're never going to get angry again? No. What it means is that you're resolving the anger. It's like emptying out a cup, right? So this is an analogy I give to people all the time. When people are anxious all the time or they have anger problems. So imagine your emotions are like a cup, right? When we're born, our cup of anger and fear and all that is empty. But then as we go through our life, that cup fills up, right? Stuff from our childhood, middle school, high school, adulthood. Well, eventually the cup is going to get so full that even the smallest tiny little thing, like somebody cutting me off on the freeway, is going to cause us to overflow with that emotion, right? So basically what we're doing is just emptying out that cup, but that doesn't mean the cup can't fill back up. So the way that you do that is, again, taking the learnings, letting go, moving on, and just staying free and just, keep moving. So, again, if you release those emotions from the past, doesn't mean you'll never feel it again, but it's not going to be as intense as all the stuff that you've held on to throughout your entire life. So,
yeah. That's amazing, man. I want to get to the genetic holdovers because the first time that I heard about this was actually about diet. A friend of mine, John Vroman, has a very successful mastermind group and podcast called Front Row Dads. He was interviewing a dietitian, and the guy was talking about how the way that we eat can affect something, and I'm going to get the number wrong, so I apologize, but 14 or like 24 generations down the line. And he was like, if you want to know why humans just desire sugar and we fall for stuff that has sugar in it and we get addicted to sweets is, if you go back, probably a couple hundred generations, we were hunter-gatherer, or we were foragers, not hunter-gatherers yet. And so it's like, if you came upon a fig tree, you stayed at that fig tree until you ate every single fig off that tree, because the sugar was like life-giving. It was, it would sustain the little family of wanderers for days or weeks. And so we're like genetically predispositioned to just love sugar, like our taste buds, our physiology, our mental connection to sugar. It's why, like, right now I'm thinking about Oreos, and I want to end this podcast right now to go get some double stuffed Oreos. So it makes sense to me when you say that emotions or trauma or whatnot can also get caught up in our genetic code. And it seems a little woo-woo, but it also seems like something that's woo-woo that they're going to prove one day with science.
It's already been proven, and I've proven it myself with clients. I just had a guy the other day who we were releasing negative emotions. We were releasing, I think it was hurt. And so, we're going, he's like, yeah, this started, he has his eyes closed going through the whole thing. He's like, yeah, it's before my birth. He's like, I'm getting on my grandpa's side. I don't know. This is weird. He's going through the whole thing. So he's describing to me, so his grandfather was in the Soviet Union, or he was in the KGB, I think, KGB or whatever, during World War I or II, whatever war it was. And so he goes, yeah, man, this is weird, but my grandpa's in like a barn, and there's four or five people, I can't remember. And we're all wearing these coats, and we're all just afraid. Like, I don't know why, but I just get the sense that, like, we're all afraid because we're going to die. Yeah, this is what he's telling me. And
by the way, it's that specific.
Dude, so let me tell you. So that's specific. So he, and by the way, nobody's ever told him this story. He doesn't know this story.
I was going to say, because naysayers would be like, no, when you were 5 years old, you heard this story and you're just making it up in your head.
No. So this is what happened. So we went through the whole thing and whatever. And so that day he started talking, he's telling his dad about his experience. He's like, Dad, this is so weird. I did this whole thing with grandpa, or this, this tapping this memory with grandpa. And his dad was taken aback because he goes, you know what? He said, that's so crazy, because he's like, I've heard that story from grandpa one time. And he goes, he was telling his uncle the story, and his dad just happened to overhear it. So his grandpa didn't tell his dad the story. He was talking to his uncle, telling him the whole exact story. And he said, how many people were with him? He said 5. It was 4 or 5. And he's like, yeah. He's like, okay, what were they wearing? Coats, long coats. It was winter time. He's like, why were they there? He's like, I don't know, but I just got the sense that they were going to die. So what ended up happening was, since his dad knew the story, what he said was his grandpa was in a hospital. The hospital, something was happening, so they had to leave, and he grabbed a coat of the opposition, whoever they were fighting against, grabbed that coat. So when they found him, he was wearing whatever, Germany's coat or whatever it was.
Coat of the enemy.
Coat of the enemy, yeah. And he's like, no, I'm Russian, I'm this, I'm that. And they're like, well, let's confirm. So they had him in that barn because they were confirming before they were going to execute him the next day. So luckily, obviously, the guy's still alive. So, the guy, my client. So turns out that he was all legit, everything checked out, and they didn't kill him. So I've also had, I can go on for days, but I'll just tell one more story. So I had another client of mine who, it was the same emotion, was hurt. And he's like, he's got his eyes closed, but this time it was during his mom's pregnancy. Okay. And he goes, yeah, he starts tearing up. He's getting really emotional. And he's like, man, I don't know if this is real or what this is, man. But he's like, I'm getting that my dad kicked my mom in the back while she was pregnant. And again, nobody ever told him the story, whatever. So then he went and told his mom that same day. And he said his mom literally went from normal talking like you and I to just completely pale, just instantly blood left her body. And she was just stumbling and stammering. It was like, who told you that story? Nobody knows that story. And he said, yeah, I was working with this hypnotist guy, and this is the memory that popped up or whatever. And it turns out that actually happened, that his dad kicked his mom in the back, and his dad wasn't abusive or anything, but it's just whatever happened during the pregnancy. And she goes, me and your dad, I've never told anybody that story. Just you and your dad are the only people that know that. So I don't know how you knew, but obviously she didn't want to tell anybody the story because she's
course,
like
yeah.
a lot of shame around that kind of stuff. Right. So yeah. And there's, I could go on forever about other clients and whatnot, but that stuff's real.
It's weird because describing this story, like, I know you are not full of shit. Well, I think I think you're not full of shit.
You're looking into my eye trying to see if I'm lying or not, but
exactly.
I'm not.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you're telling the story so matter-of-factly that I know you believe it. I know you're also
I don't believe it. I know it.
You know it, yes. I know that you also had these experiences, like, you're not making this up. And it's also very hard for me to rationalize or believe. Like extremely hard for me to rationalize or believe. So what would the naysayer say, or the person that's trying to debunk you as a snake oil salesman?
Yeah.
What would they say to these, like, genetic memories of trauma? Like, how would they argue away the power of suggestion? Or again, somebody else in the family told the story, or deep down inside, you always kind of knew your father was abusive. And so you've kind of you've made this up as a memory and it just accidentally checked out. Like, what would the naysayers say if you're trying to steel man your own profession and your own argument?
I don't, like, when I'm working with somebody, they don't necessarily not believe it. They're just kind of in disbelief for the moment. So it's kind of like, I don't know, is it real? Is it not? I don't know. And then not everybody can check out the story, right? Maybe their grandpa passed away or, whatever. But me, even myself, when I started going to this, I'm like, no, I'm probably just making this up in my head. I don't know. But here's how you know it's real. Number one, you can feel it in your body. So just like you felt what you were feeling. Now, if that wasn't something that person actually went through, they would have no feeling of it, because it would just be like a made up thing in their mind that they would have no emotion tied to it. But also, scientists have proven that memories are passed down through our DNA. Now, they've proven it with animals, right? So one way they've done it is they take 10 generations of chickens, they put them in these big, huge chicken coops, and then they breed the chickens 10 generations. Now, these chickens have never seen the light of day. They've only seen chickens and humans. That's it, okay? Well, in the 10th generation, they'll fly a circle over the chicken coop, no response from the chickens. They'll fly a square over the chicken coop, no response. They'll fly a triangle over, no response. But as soon as they fly a hawk over, the chickens start freaking out, right? Now, how is it possible that the chicken knows that the hawk is a predator? Because they've never seen one before. It's 10 generations removed. Well, that's because for hundreds of maybe thousands of generations through their bloodline, their cousins, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, grandpas, brothers, whatever, are outside hanging out in a group, and then a hawk comes down and swoops up one of their ancestors. So then that memory gets encoded, like, oh shit, next time we see that, we have to know there's something wrong. This is a threat. We got to run, right? So that's how it's been proven through animals. I don't know if they've done any human studies with it, but just through my own studies, I guess you could say, I know it's real. So yeah, there's nothing anybody could ever tell me to, like, it's just, they just don't know that, they just don't have the knowledge, right?
Now, where does it pass the gray line to where maybe there can be some, or worse than a gray line, where there can be some danger in the power of suggestion? Because, well, Chris, first of all, did you find out if men actually do live longer when they're married? Is that a true thing, or did I make that up?
Yes, according to health.harvard.edu.
Oh, perfect. How long is it?
Makes sense.
I didn't get to that. It says
it's probably a lot to do with the oxytocin too. When the love drug, that's a very healing chemical in the body, like serotonin, endorphins. That's why when you work out, you feel so good after.
The one weird thing it says is that men who marry after age 25 get more protection than those who tie the knot at a younger age.
That makes total sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, total sense.
Yeah.
So the next thing I was going to have you look up, Chris, and this is where, like, when the power of suggestion, or I don't know if this would be hypnosis or whatnot, goes wrong, is there's famously that case of the kindergarten in Southern California, like preschool kindergarten, that got shut down because a hypnotist started working with a bunch of kids and helping them bring out repressed memories of being sexually abused by this family and these teachers. And it completely destroyed this family that had like a 3-generation old, preschool daycare in Southern California. And then they found out over the years that it was all bullshit, that basically somebody was implanting the power of suggestion. And I don't know even how you would word that, or I don't understand how any of this shit would work, but it went horribly wrong in the 80s. And maybe you can look up that famous kindergarten study, or that preschool study, Chris, where it's like in the 80s, there was, this was very in vogue.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of people having repressed memories about, oh, daddy touched me improperly,
Right.
my teacher sexually abused me. And then, over the years, it came out that it was all all bullshit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've never looked into that, but I will say this just happened the other day. I'll try not to give too many details, because I don't like to
of course,
give too many details about people. But this is a lady I was just talking to on Instagram, and she said, my daughter, out of nowhere, just decided that she was trans. She's like, what? Like, I don't know why, whatever. And so lo and behold, her therapist, her mom didn't know this when she signed her up for or this counselor or something, was a transgender man, or I don't know how you say it, but a woman that turned into a man. And the therapist, the counselor, or whoever she was giving the young girl suggestions that, hey, it's because you want to be a man and this and that. And she said something along the lines of like, you want to be, you're in almost like a cult. It was really weird and very, it was just very sad that somebody would do that. But to your point, like, that actually happened to this little girl, and then out of nowhere, she just decided she was trans. So I do believe that, yeah, that's totally possible. You could get people to believe, you could get people to believe a lot of stuff, especially little kids, right? They're so suggestible.
Right.
What was your question though?
Just the danger of that, right? It's like,
it's
like,
okay. Let me answer this. So when I work with clients, I don't ever give them suggestions of what it might be. Now, you and I are talking, so I'm just like, yeah, it's probably because of this, blah, blah, blah,
right.
because we're not actually doing a session. Like, oh, you want to hold on to your anger because of whatever. That's just a common thing. But I'll never give somebody a suggestion like, oh, was it because of this? Was it because this is why it happened? It's all them. Right. So I'm just asking questions like, hey, when did this start? Was this something before your birth, during your birth, or after birth? And they're just like, I don't know. I'm getting before my birth, but I'm not really sure. Okay, cool. Was it your mom's side, your dad's side? Getting like my mom's side. Was your mom, your grandpa, your great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, whatever. And that's how they find it. But I don't ever say, hey, this is what happened to you. This is for sure. I don't give people suggestion. So just like when we did the little finger exercise, right? I made it a point to not tell you what was going to happen, because the power of suggestion can influence your mind to go, oh no, I don't feel it anymore. But is that because Dom told me that, or is it something that I felt on my own? So yeah, you could, I could totally see how you could convince kids to think that they were sexually abused or, whatever. And by the way, believe it or not, a lot of, I've worked with a lot of people who don't necessarily come to me for that, but they'll bring it up, that they were molested or, something happened to them. And there's, a lot of people that I work with that we don't even have to talk about the trauma at all. Like, I don't even have to know what happened, but people just open up and they'll tell, what's going on. So, no, that's unfortunate. But here's the thing, just like this lighter could be used to light the cigar, but it could also be used to, light your house on fire. It's however you use it. Right. So I guess it just depends on the person's intentions of who's given the therapy,
So if we go back to the therapy, like what's the process? Like, you go to this 2.5 day course. I'm sure that didn't teach you everything you need.
No.
Like, what's the certification process? I mean, because if you think about it, if somebody comes to you, I'm guessing they're probably on they're at their wit's end of maybe I've tried therapy. Maybe I've tried, going to Tony Robbins. I've tried writing love letters to myself. Like, I'm guessing if somebody's willing to try hypnosis, they're probably at their wit's end. Yeah. So, the responsibility that falls on you to properly lead them through whatever the exercise is. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. That's a huge amount of trust. So where are people at mindset wise when they usually come to you? And then what's the process?
Yeah. So, well, usually people don't do something until they're in pain, right? So yeah, that is a very common thing where people are like, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. And then there's just people who are curious about it and maybe they haven't tried therapy. So there's all different spectrums, but you asked what was the process. So basically, well, at this point, I don't do any of my own initial consultations just because I have a lot of clients I work with. So I have somebody who does that for me. However, when I do work with a client, like my first session with them, I go through a series of questions where we talk to their subconscious mind and we figure out, okay, why are you having this problem that you're having? Where did this start? What's going on, right? And there's there's a million different reasons as to why somebody may have anxiety or problems with motivation or whatever the case may be, right? So we identify what that is. In 95% of the time, it's completely out of the person's awareness. Like they're just not conscious of why they're doing what they're doing. So I'll give you an example.
Is there like the big five that you're trying to solve, like hurt, anger, narcissism?
Yeah, so I go through all that. That's just part of everybody's process. We go through all the negative emotions, but more so it's when people are when they're doing the same thing over and over again and they don't know why they're doing it, it's because it's a pattern, it's a habit they developed, right? And most people live out some form of their childhood over and over and over again throughout their entire lives. Not much changes. It's just the people and your circumstances change, but the story kind of stays the same. So I'll give you an example. I was working with a lady who is, I'll just leave out the details, but she's very educated, very smart person.
Right.
And, she was having trouble with passing a test to get like a higher license for what she does. And so she's like, I don't know why this is happening, yada, yada, yada. So, like when I go to take the test, my last test, I missed by one answer. Like, how could this happen to me? Right. So after talking to her subconscious mind, what we found out in the matter of 10 minutes is that she subconsciously didn't want to take on the responsibility of getting that higher license and getting that next role in her company. So she unconsciously, like purposely self-sabotage herself so that she wouldn't, so that she didn't have to take on that extra pressure and everything else. So essentially her subconscious mind would not allow her to pass the test because it didn't want to take on all the stress, because in her past, she had done that before and it caused her all kinds of problems, right? Now, she didn't know she was doing that, but once we talk to her subconscious mind, we find out why that's happening and then we let it go and then she's on her way. Awesome. So people do that a lot. A lot of people have like fear of success is a very common thing where, hey, if I get to this next level, I'm going to get attacked by all these people and stuff like that, right? So I actually just recently went through this myself. So I had this company that reached out to me that they want to do a show about what I do, right? And they did it's a production company. They did My 600 Pound Life and like all these other shows. So anyways, the guy reaches out to me and we had a couple of chats or whatever. And he was just, he's just like super hyped up, like, man, I really like you. That's, whatever. And so I remember getting off the first or second call and thinking to myself like, oh shit, man, what if this actually, cause that like the shows that they've done are pretty big. Like they get millions of views and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, what if I get to this next level? Like, cause I used to be a completely different person in my past. I was an asshole. I was a fucking dick. I just wasn't who I am now.
Yeah.
And so I started
whole
to
body
think,
is tattooed.
Yeah.
Really scary dude. Yeah.
Right.
Now you're all happy.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly.
weird.
Yeah. Like just getting fights all the time and just the whole thing. So, I started to think like, oh no, like what if things from my past pop up, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I resolved it. I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. Like I am who I am. We all make our mistakes. Like, people always want to point fingers at other people like, oh, this person did this person did that. And it's like, everybody has their moments they're not so proud of in their past. And I don't care who you are. So I was like, I kind of just resolved it in my mind and I let it go. Now I'm fine. But had I not known what was going on, I know because I do this, right? Most people that would go through that wouldn't know exactly why that's happening. And they would just somehow self-sabotage it and the opportunity would fleet and it would be gone, right? So luckily I know, so I can clear it out and move on. So, but that's a very common thing. Fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of people's past coming up into their present and all that kind of stuff. So,
it's really weird. I'm going to tell a long story and then you can tell me how fucked up I am in the head. So I'm primarily a loan officer. 40, 50 hours a week, I'm working on being a loan officer and closing loans for clients. And we have an amazing team that makes that happen. And then part of my job at this point is more like the business to business development. I'm rarely talking to clients at this point. I'm calling the realtors for the referrals and I'm writing the newsletters and I'm doing the marketing and I'm figuring out how we can reach more people and better educate them and have better systems and build a better mousetrap. That's kind of my role now. And about 7 years ago, there was one realtor and I know her name. I know exactly what she looks like. I know everything about her and her team that I used to get a lot of business from. And when I start getting really heavily into coaching And I think I just started writing the book Lead Generate. And I was really like enjoying coaching and how much it was changing my life. So part of my regular calls to realtors, instead of just being the guy who's like, hey man, you got a lead for me so I can pre-approve people, I would start to talk to people more from like a coaching sense, like, hey, how was the weekend? Did you play and spend time with your family, or did you do an open house and you get a bunch of leads? You know, I have a couple realtors now that call me for like book recommendations when they're in a funk. They're like, hey, I'm kind of struggling with this. I know you've read all the self-help books. What should I read next? And I'll never forget, I called this one realtor, Christy, and I was like, hey, Christy, how was the weekend? Blah, 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 blah. And she unloaded on me. This was like 6 or 7 years ago. She's like, Scott, I don't need your fucking coaching every Monday. Like, why are you calling me? And just like as negative as she could get. And at the end of the day, that was probably all about her, right?
Yeah,
she was having a bad day. She was mad that maybe business wasn't where she wanted it to be. But just that one interaction of her unloading on me has made me so self-conscious about leaning into the fact that like, hey guys, I also run a coaching business from, 7 to 7:15 because I'm an early riser after jiu-jitsu. I plan the coaching curriculum. I do 1 10-minute call, and then I do it on the weekends instead of, I don't know, watch 8 hours of Desperate Housewives of Atlanta or whatever. So it's not like the coaching is interfering with my mortgage business, but I'm so self-conscious about it now on how realtors will react if I'm open and honest about the fact that I own a coaching business for loan officers, and like so much of that is directly transferable to helping realtors. But I'm still to this day scared to talk about it because I'm like, well, who's the next realtor that's not going to send me a loan referral because they think I'm spending too much time on the coaching stuff? And it fucks with my brain endlessly from one lady screaming at me who probably doesn't even remember screaming at me.
No, not at all. Yeah.
It's so fucked up.
Remember, all events in life are neutral. So that neutral event occurred. You had an option to go, hey, I can look at this negatively or positively, and you took the negative route, and that's okay. But that goes to show you how that's a little blip in the grand scheme of things, right? But in your life, it's like this huge thing. So one event can completely shift somebody's path and their reality, right? So do you want to get rid of that? Do you want to like release that and let it go?
Yeah, because I mean, I've done over $1 billion of home loans. Our coaching company's made over $1 million over its, Genesis 6 years ago. It's like we're being really successful in all these places, but it still fucks with me to like lean into the fact that I'm a coach and I actually know what I'm doing when I'm talking to realtors. Because I'm like, oh, well, I'm the service provider for the realtors. I count on them for my leads. So who am I to tell them that?
Close your eyes for a second.